White said Matchnick told him that her child's father was getting out of prison in 11 months and was going to kill them. So she told him to shoot her at the spot his name is tattooed on her face.
Mr. White claims Alicia believed her husband would be released from prison in 11 months, and that when he would kill her and her children. According to him, Alicia thought death was inevitable. According to him, this was her decision. According to him, he was carrying out her final request. These events took place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. More specifically, Alicia was found shot dead inside a motel room at the Port Motel on Appleton Avenue in Milwaukee. When there are no security cameras, no people who saw what happened, and no good recording of what went down, the truth about what happened is hard to figure out. The police have to work hard to find out what is true. Alicia Matchnick is dead, and the man accused of killing her says she asked him to do it. But here's the problem. Alicia is not here to confirm or deny any of that. There is no video, no recording, no note, no message, no independent witness. Just a dead woman and a living man who might be telling the truth or trying to pull off one of the most devilish lies of all time. So the question becomes unavoidable. So we don't end up letting a cold killer roam our streets. Is he telling the truth? Or is this the kind of story someone tells when the alternative is facing the full consequences of something irreversible? The kind of lies people tell when they're in a spot and they don't know what to do? Before we even get to the night Alicia died, it's important to understand who she was beyond the headlines. Because crime has a way of flattening people into symbols. Victim, suspect, defendant, case number, and all those other terms might not let us see that the people in these stories are human beings. Alicia was a mother. She was someone's daughter, someone's friend, someone who woke up every day with responsibilities, worries, and 2 children depending on her. We'll get to her children in a bit. She was navigating life under pressure, carrying fears that may not have been visible to everyone around her. People close to Alicia described her as someone trying to keep her life together in a difficult situation. And that detail matters, because cases like this don't explode out of nowhere. They don't just happen suddenly. They cook for a while. They build. They grow in environments shaped by stress, uncertainty, and fear. Alicia's husband was incarcerated. Situations like this reshapes the structure of a family. It creates distance, emotional strain, and unanswered questions about the future. For some families, incarceration is followed by reconciliation. For others, it becomes the beginning of something bad. Bad relationships between the children and their parents are no longer as strong as they used to be. In Alicia's case, the looming question wasn't just when her husband would be released. It was what that release would mean. According to the account later offered by Mr. White, Alicia believed that her husband's return would have a terrible result.
When she told him to shoot her, allegedly because she was afraid of her child's father, who was getting out of prison within the year. Filings say White admitted to shooting Matchnick and fled the room and shot.
Not just ordinary conflict or tension, but she had reason to believe that he would kill her and her children as soon as he got out. That belief, if true, would mean Alicia was living with a countdown clock in her head. 11 months. Every day is ticking closer. Every night potentially filled with dread about what would happen when time ran out. But fear is complicated. Fear can be justified. It can also be magnified. It can be rooted in past experiences, or it can be shaped by stories, assumptions, and trauma. And fear, when left unchecked, can push people toward decisions they might never make in a calmer state of mind. Maybe Alicia had something to do with why her husband was taken to prison. But problem is this: fear doesn't excuse homicide, and claims of fear require evidence. What makes this case particularly disturbing is how neatly the responsibility shifts in the story being told. In that version, Alicia is not just a victim of violence, but the architect of her own death. The one who requested it. The one who framed it as a twisted act of protection for her children. That narrative does something very powerful. It removes agency from the person who pulled the trigger and places it on someone who can no longer speak. How is that fair? Not just to Alicia, but her children would also grow up thinking that their mother wanted herself killed and that she left them alone. And that's why so many people struggle with it. Because when someone dies violently, and the explanation comes entirely from the person accused of killing them, skepticism isn't cruelty. It's common sense. In the days leading up to Alicia's death, there was no public indication that she was preparing to die. No goodbye messages, no final arrangements, no known communications that suggest she believed she wouldn't be alive much longer. That doesn't prove she didn't feel afraid. But it complicates the idea that she had fully accepted death as inevitable. People who believe their end is near often leave something behind. A message, a call, a trace of their thoughts. Something that says, "This is what I believed." In Alicia's case, there was nothing. And silence creates space for speculation. The night Alicia was killed is where everything collapses into a single, irreversible moment. A motel room. A confined space. A setting that already carries a certain weight in true crime history. We've seen many crimes committed in motels, even in movies. Motels are transient places. Temporary, isolated, easy to disappear into, and just as easy to disappear from. When Alicia was found, she had been shot. There were no cameras in the room. No hallway footage made public that could definitively reconstruct the moments leading up to the shooting. No audio. No witnesses to confirm what was said or how events escalated. Just physical evidence and a narrative. Law enforcement arrived and did what investigators always do. They secured the scene, collected evidence, examined trajectories, looked for signs of struggle. They didn't just listen to a story and walk away. And eventually, prosecutors made a decision. They charged Mr. White with first-degree intentional homicide. That charge matters. It means investigators and prosecutors believe this was not accidental, not impulsive, not justified. It suggests intent, deliberation, a choice made with awareness of consequences. Prosecutors don't bring charges like that lightly. They know what they're up against. They know the burden of proof is high. They know defense attorneys will challenge every detail. So when a charge like that is filed, it tells us that the story being told by the accused did not align with the evidence as they understood it. But here's where true crime becomes complicated. Legal truth and emotional truth don't always align neatly. A courtroom is built to answer one question. Can this be proven beyond a reasonable doubt? The public, on the other hand, is asking something different. Why did this happen? And that question doesn't always have a clean answer. Some people hear Mr. White's claim and think, maybe she really was that afraid. Others hear it and think, this sounds like a convenient story. And both reactions come from the same place. An attempt to make sense of something that feels senseless. But while adults debate motive and credibility, there are two people whose lives were forever changed without any say in the matter. Alicia's children. They didn't get a voice in this story. They didn't get a choice. One day, they had a mother, and then they didn't. One day, their father was part of their world, and then he wasn't. They're growing up in the aftermath of something they didn't cause and can't undo. Think about that for a moment. What does it do to a child to grow up knowing their mother died violently? To hear conflicting stories about why? To know that the adults around them may never agree on what really happened? How do you build a sense of safety when the people meant to protect you are gone or imprisoned? Children in situations like this often grow up carrying an invisible weight. They may struggle with trust, with anger, with confusion, with guilt they shouldn't have. They may ask themselves questions no child should ever have to ask. Was my mother afraid? Did she feel alone? Did someone fail her? Could this have been stopped? And maybe the hardest question of all, why us? The absence of security cameras becomes more than just a technical detail in this context. It becomes symbolic. Cameras don't solve everything, but they anchor reality. They give us something objective to point to, something that doesn't rely on memory or motive. Without them, truth becomes a negotiation, and negotiations favor the person who survives. That doesn't mean every survivor is lying, but it does mean their version of events must be examined carefully, especially when it assigns blame to someone who cannot respond. In this case, the lack of footage means we don't know what Alicia said in those final moments. We don't know her tone. We don't know if there was fear, anger, confusion, or resistance. We don't know if there was a struggle, or if words were twisted after the fact. All we know is the outcome. Alicia is dead. And that fact alone demands seriousness, caution, and respect. As the case moved forward, media coverage followed a familiar pattern. Headlines condensed complex details into short phrases. Sound bites replaced nuance. Online discussions filled in gaps with assumptions. Some people focused on the alleged motive. Others focused on the brutality of the act. Some questioned Alicia's decisions. Others refused to entertain the idea that she could have asked for her own death at all. True crime content often walks a thin line between analysis and entertainment. And cases like this test where that line should be drawn. Because behind every theory is a real person who lived, loved, and died. And behind every comment section is a family who has to see strangers debate the worst moment of their lives. There's another layer to this case that doesn't get talked about enough. How society responds to fear, especially fear expressed by women. When women say they are afraid, they are often questioned, minimized, asked to prove it, asked why they didn't leave, why they didn't call someone, why they didn't do more. But fear doesn't always come with clear instructions, and not every situation has an obvious exit. At the same time, fear can be weaponized. It can be exaggerated. It can be used to justify actions that would otherwise be indefensible. That tension sits at the heart of this case. Was Alicia a woman trapped in a situation she believed she could not escape? Or is her fear being used after her death to explain away something far darker? The legal system will attempt to answer some of these questions. Evidence will be examined. Testimony will be weighed. A verdict may eventually be reached. But verdicts don't tell the whole story. They don't explain how fear grows quietly over time. They don't explain how isolation changes people. They don't explain what happens when someone believes the future holds nothing but harm. And they certainly don't explain how children rebuild their lives after losing both parents in different ways. As this case continues, one thing remains painfully clear. There is no outcome that feels like justice in the traditional sense. No resolution that restores what was lost. Even if guilt is legally established, Alicia is still gone. Even if doubt remains, her children are still growing up without her. This is not a story with a satisfying ending. It's a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about violence, fear, and the limits of what we can ever truly know. So when you hear claims about what Alicia supposedly said, ask yourself this. Who benefits from that story? And when you feel yourself leaning toward a conclusion, ask this instead. What don't we know? Because in the absence of cameras, in the absence of proof, humility matters. So does empathy. Somewhere beyond courtrooms, headlines, and debates, there are two children who will spend their lives trying to understand a night that changed everything. And whatever the truth may be, that reality should never be forgotten.